Let's do it. Yes, I'm feeling it. This is gonna be an awesome video, guys. I'm gonna tell you why, because it's gonna be a lot of fun. Okay, so we're gonna talk about low cost basis grading to build your collection. What is one of the best ways to build up your Pokemon card collection? I feel like this one probably has been beaten to death as a topic, but I also think it's probably good to bring it up to the surface every now and again, especially because a lot of us that have been in the hobby for a long time, us veteran collectors, you know, we've been in the trenches. We've seen some things in our last couple of tours out there in the collecting world. But a lot of us have kind of forgotten to reiterate some of these things to the newer collectors that are coming into the hobby. You want to help people in this hobby, you want to be good to the community. Well, say some piece of information that may really help people make better informed decisions. And I don't think it's buy this now, this card is going to explode. I don't think those are the ways that we are going to help this community the most. That's just another one of those situations I talked about where everybody is following the money train. Now, I want to say, guys, I may be a little bit loopy today. I am running low on sleep. I have an incredibly, you might not see another video from me for the next couple of days. We have an incredibly jam-packed week at the bar, and it's going to be a struggle. But let's go ahead and jump straight into this. We're going to be talking about some of my lower value, some of my favorite cards that I've picked up for next to nothing and gotten graded. And then we're going to also talk about the other side of that spectrum where people who want to buy graded cards that are already really highly graded cards, but they're going to have to pay a pretty penny. Is it worth it? What's kind of the difference? What does it feel like? And how can you avoid making some of the same mistakes that I've made, and also maybe learn from some of the great successful grading plays that I've also made. Now, there is no mystery that grading is one of the ways to bring in money in this hobby, but we're not necessarily talking about that. We're talking about how to build your graded collection, right? We're not necessarily talking about how to take this card worth nothing and flip it for a lot of money to pay your bills. No, a lot of people that have jobs for that don't need to worry about that. I am trying to show you guys how to build up your graded collection. Now, for the people that have been in this hobby for a while, that have watched my channel for a while, this is nothing new to you, but some of these cards might be a little bit interesting, and you might say, oh, I totally forgot he had that. But to do a quick recap, I personally believe that you cannot really get in on the ground level with grading stuff at rock bottom prices unless you are collecting in environments that are unlike the one we're in now, right? Where everything is hyped up, inflated, artificially pumped, scalped, over collected. We have a lot of mixed feelings about the hobby right now. I think everybody would agree, but it's still a great time to be in the hobby, and this is something that the people that have been binder collecting could maybe really benefit from. So I do want to go ahead and say that I have recently sold off all of my modern Pokemon binders, and there's no shame in that. It was taking up way too much space, and I like a couple of the cards in each set, and I just said, you know what? I got these for so cheap at that time. This kind of plays into the low cost basis grading grind of this video. On a more serious note, right? I've been joking in the last couple videos, but I really do want to be more passionate about this one, because this is the stuff that brings me true happiness in this hobby, is getting a good deal on something, and then it gets graded, and then wow, it's this gem mint copy of this card that you just thought was really cool, and now you get to have that in your collection, and now it is protected for the rest of time in that graded slab. That's one of my favorite things about grading, is that it protects your cards. More than anything, that's something that I value, because the idea of moving a binder around and dropping it, or moving a page the wrong way and bending like 3 cards at the same time, I know that that is an extreme, but it's also why I'm not a big fan of binders. Now, where binders are amazing is being able to store thousands, hundreds, if not thousands of mint condition cards, while also getting a much better cost basis and deal on those cards because you bought them raw. So there are so many variables in here. There's no way I'm going to cover everything. And I don't mean to cover everything. I wanted this to be a short video before I get ready to spend the rest of the day with my family and then go to work. So we have a huge engagement party today. I am nervous about it. So this is pretty much the highlight of my day because the rest of the night is just going to be grind after I spend time with the family. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to talk about some of my favorite cards here and why they're some of my favorite cards. So we're going to start off with this Wartortle. Now, at first glance, it just looks like it is a base set or base 2 Wartortle. And as we get closer, you see the base 2 stamp right there, and it's like, yeah, it's a base 2 Wartortle. And then you see the gold stamp right here, and you go, oh, that's a Wizards gold stamp Wartortle. It doesn't really matter what it is, just that this non-holo Wartortle is actually one of my favorite cards in my collection. Some of you already know that, some of you don't know that. It is a weird card for sure. So, backstory on this card. Collection buys are one of the best ways to grow your collection in this hobby, right? You buy someone else's trash, it's your treasure, and then you pick and choose what you want to keep, what you want to grade, what you want to sell, what you want to get rid of. But it is a treasure hunt, guys. And unfortunately, a lot of the treasure hunting in the hobby right now is kind of dead because it is just, we're oversaturated with people all doing the same thing. So I want to say that a lot of this stuff, before I go ahead and drop this and crack everything, I want to go ahead and say that this was in a time where people did not care as much about Pokemon. I'm not saying that there wasn't demand or hype even in this time, because this was, what, 4 years ago when I picked this up, and only recently this year that I got it graded. This is an 100 cert. So it was freshly graded, really proud of that. No, this one is not altered, luckily. So these Wartortle Top Deck Magazine gold stamp cards are really not that rare, but even this one in a PSA 6 still would have been cool because I got it for like nothing. I bought a collection, it had a bunch of cards in it, many of which I've sold. One of my biggest regrets is actually selling a lot of the cards from that collection because not everything is about money. And one day you look back and you say, I wish I would have kept all of that stuff for the sentimental aspect of it and the memories of it, right? When you're just buying slabs, there's no sentimental aspect. There's really no memory created with it. It's a transaction. Simply put, it doesn't bring that much like emotional, I don't know, psychological joy. It is just a transaction. It is the grind of building your collection with money. Or in some people's cases, mine included, blood, sweat, and tears has earned me some of my collection, but I'm not all that proud of spending that kind of money for those cards. And we'll talk about some of those cards in a little bit, but I wanted to put all the emphasis on the cards that didn't cost me much, that mean a lot to me in this collection. Now, why is this Top Deck Magazine gold stamp Wartortle? Y'all have looked it up right now. It's not worth very much, especially not in a PSA 6. So, Ryan, what's your point here? The card's not worth much, and it's still not worth much. But this particular card is an error card. PSA did not refuse to recognize it, and that's fine. I just wanted it slabbed and protected. It would have been nice if they recognized the error, but not a big deal, because it's for my personal collection. And we're talking about how to build up your personal collection. Not necessarily how to flip things and make money, which everybody is doing right now. So this has this stamp, there's actually, if you guys can see this, I hope you guys can see this, there's two stamps right there. This is actually an error, and there's a double stamp right there. Now, I'm gonna move forward because this card's taking too much time, but that's just a really, really cool card of mine that basically cost me next to nothing that I bought out of a collection and then got graded. Now, Ryan, what are you assessing the value on something like that? Because I know some of you are thinking, well, what is the value, Ryan? Because we want to know about building value and also building our personal collections. Even if we're not going to sell it, why do you get that one particular card graded? The last copy I sold of that card was in worse condition. I sold it as an error card raw, and I think it sold for $240, guys. And that was years ago. Right? So I imagine that this double stamp Wartortle is probably somewhere in the range of $400 or $500 just because it is rare and you don't see very many of them. Now, what's cool is I actually had 3 at one point in time. Looking back, I should have kept all 3 of them because I don't know anybody who's seen that card, and no one has even mentioned that they've seen one of those before. I have not even heard anybody mentioning anything about Top Deck Magazine or Gold Stamp Wizards cards that had a double stamp error like that one. So that's a really, really cool card. And yes, in this video, I'm gonna be a little bit more passionate, a little bit less jokes. Okay, moving forward. What also came out of that same collection, right? So the story behind this, one of my best stories, what makes my channel probably interesting even to me, is some of the interactions I've had, which have mostly been due to being persistent locally, but also YouTube. YouTube making content, other creators have talked about this. That's how they got distribution. That's how they got known in the hobby. That's how they bought collections, because people know who they are and they put themselves out there. They build up credibility and a reputation, and that is a great way to find deals in this hobby. And that's also why I will continue making videos, to continue putting out that reputation in hopes that it might land me some really cool collection pickups in the future, like this one. So the story about this card right here, this is a Gengar card, right? Big fan of Gengar, as it are a lot of people in this hobby. This card came from that same collection that the double stamp Wartortle came from. So a guy that was working in my bar at one point in time mentioned that his dad did trash for the city and had all of these Pokemon cards that were just collecting dust sitting in a box that they wanted to get rid of and get some cash money for. He didn't really care about them. He was just like, how much would you be willing to do on this? Now, at the time, I didn't know a lot about Pokemon, and I just knew that I didn't want to spend thousands or even hundreds of dollars on a box of old Pokemon cards. I wasn't well equipped enough to know then what that stuff would be worth. Knowing what I know now, I probably should have given a much better offer than I did, but I offered $200 to buy an entire box stacked full of cards. We didn't know what was in there. This was literally sight unseen. Like, I was like, that's really cool. I'm gonna give you $200 right off the bat. And when I went through it, I didn't feel that much differently about it. A lot of the cards were damaged, scratched. This Gengar EX from Fire Red Leaf Green is also scratched up on the hollow, but you might not notice because it is in that nice graded slab. I wonder if we can get some harsh light on that and you guys can actually see or tell some of those light surface scratches on there. But the front, for the most part, still from a couple feet away, is absolutely stunning. And this card in particular is absolutely stunning. It really is a beautiful card. I don't really like the design of it. I don't really care for the CGI Gengar. It's kind of goofy looking to me. But this card has earned Grail status among a lot of collectors, particularly in a mint grade like PSA 9 or PSA 10. But we don't care about that. This is a PSA 5 card that was included in that collection, and it cost me next to nothing. My cost basis was probably a couple dollars for this card, in all honesty. Even at $10, $20, this still would have been a huge play in today's standard. This PSA 5, right? For the guys that care about value, this PSA 5 card is worth about $300 or $400 now. It's a really nice copy. Someone has already offered to buy this card off of me, but I have not sold it because I realized that it's not just about the money, and this card represents the memories that I've had in this hobby from an early point. Now, you guys are going to see the back of this card, and it is just chewed up. I mean, it's chewed up. Look at that whitening. It's crazy. Now, really, it's only on that top edge, but it's crazy. Like, PSA 5s to me, I've always been someone who's been an advocate for buying these mid-grade cards because I just think the value is great. They're already protected. They're already slabbed. There's really no premium on it. Now, in this environment, that is not the case. Buying these right now in this environment is probably not the move. Again, I want to stress here that if you are buying this environment, you want it to be raw cards that you grade yourself, right? I don't mean GameStop. I don't mean through friends. I don't mean through a shop that's going to charge you more. I mean grading yourself, because one of my biggest regrets is that I didn't grade anything sooner. I just started this year grading cards after 5 years almost of being in this hobby. 4 for sure. It's pretty amazing to even think that I'm coming up on that point in this channel. And I really appreciate all of you guys for supporting and watching the videos on a more serious note. But moving forward, that Gengar EX is beautifully amazing, okay? Putting that out in the sun and just looking at it sparkle, right? I could give two shits. That the fact that it's a PSA 5, it really doesn't matter to me, and I don't think you should let anybody make you feel down about how your collection is graded or what grades they are. It really doesn't matter to most of us. We're all sharing love for this hobby and for the artworks. I am a little bit of a hypocrite when it comes to that because I do have some very high dollar, high value cards, but again, it didn't start that way. I wasn't always that way. I wasn't always corrupted to think that I have to have the high dollar, high value cards, but I do make more money than I've ever made right now running the bar, and things are going really well, and it has allowed me, really, quite honestly, if I didn't have such a good job, there's no way I could own some of the nicer cards I have. But moving forward, we're gonna talk about more cheaper cards that I've had graded. Also, if you're wondering what these are, they are Phantom displays. Go support Phantom display. They make awesome displays. I don't like doing the side that has the actual Phantom mask on it, but that is the kind of the logo. I use the other side a lot, but still, go support them. Phantom display makes these really cool displays, and they're also UV resistant. So for taking your cards outside and looking at them, they're awesome. No, this is not sponsored. No, I'm not promoted. I just think that they're building something really cool that the hobby needs. The same way I feel about graded guards. Okay, so let's look back at this absolutely gorgeous Rockets Mewtwo. And with the Rocket set coming out, Destined Rivals, this is going to be a more popular card, right? Obviously probably not the Japanese variant. But again, this was a part of another collection from a girl. I paid $300 for a huge Japanese binder, which I've recently sold off that binder. Kind of regretful there too, but I was trying to save up money for some of these more expensive cards that I bought. That's the problem. You can't keep it all, and that's another thing. Don't feel guilty about letting go of some of those memories, because sometimes you have to make that trade-off. If you want another more expensive card, you have to let go of some of these. But anyways, yeah, this card was like, I don't know, $5, $10 or less cost basis wise. It was a huge binder. It had over like 40, 50 hollows. I don't know. The video is way back. If you go deep into the archives of this channel, I don't delete anything. It's all there. All the cringy, embarrassing, terrible videos I've made, they're all there for you guys to go find. And all the collections that I bought, they're all there. Yeah, this girl, I offered her $200 as well, even though I knew better in the market, but I also knew they were trying to get rid of it. They didn't care about it the way that I did. And I want to buy stuff that people don't care about. I don't want the stuff that people are really sentimental about, because that takes away from me, right? I feel bad. I feel guilty about that. I have a soul, okay? But yeah, this card is absolutely beautiful. I honestly thought that this Rockets Mewtwo had a good shot at a 10. They didn't want to give it to me over at PSA. I think it's kind of messed up that they didn't want to give it to me. The front is basically flawless. And here's the back. But still, my cost in grading this card was next to nothing. And another pro tip about Japanese cards, particularly vintage cards and modern cards, this is really a money play for a lot of people that are just looking at it as a cash cow, because Japanese cards are cheaper right now. It's a contrarian play right now. It's a value play right now. So, but I also think Japanese quality is just amazing, and that's why I will definitely be keeping a couple of these older Japanese cards in my collection. Speaking of, shout out to somebody that I don't even know if they watch the channel anymore, but they sent this to my channel early on. I'm not including this in because it doesn't have to do with my cost basis. This was gifted to me by somebody who sent it to me in the mail. We got it graded, but another one of my favorite Japanese cards, the CD promos, and these CD promos are amazing. There's a Blastoise, a Venusaur, and a Charizard. But yeah, I just wanted to quickly share this guy and give him some spotlight. Shout out to Poetry for some. You will never be forgotten. One of my favorite Charizard cards in my collection. Very nice. Okay, so moving forward, the next card I want to talk about, and I have so many vintage cards in my binders that we are not going to get to because my binders are stacked up in the closet. I don't want to deal with that right now. But maybe on another video, we'll go through some of my favorite cards in my binders. I sold all my modern binders, but I still have all my vintage binders. And I've been thinking a lot about maybe going through my vintage binders and grading a couple of those cards that I really value above everything else that's there. Okay, another one that I love that is super classic, and just look at it. It just shines beautifully. You don't even need sunlight on this card. It just pops off. It's gorgeous. The Pokemon movie Ancient Mew. I picked this up for about 10, 20 bucks at my local card shop when things weren't really popping off. Again, important reminder here. I bought a lot of the stuff that I got good deals on when things weren't hot, right? When no one cared. When I was the only person going in there buying their stuff out. Now, everyone's wanting twice as much. Everyone's wanting TCG Player Plus prices. All right, I'm not a buyer right now. For that reason, I have not been shopping with any of my local game shops. I will let the hive mentality take over there. I'll let everybody else indulge there. When things pipe down, if they pipe down, they might never pipe down. Who knows? Maybe people will come to me with their collections that want to actually sell me stuff that I will enjoy, that they're getting rid of. That's who I want to buy from. But anyways, absolutely beautiful card. It received a 9. In my opinion, the card is mint. It's perfect. But apparently these cards were never supposed to get PSA 10s to begin with or gem mint to begin with because they all have a factory print line in them. I can't see any on this card. So again, I feel like this was one of those situations where the card is pop controlled. What do I mean by pop controlled? I mean that PSA grading or any of the grading companies are controlling and limiting what cards make the cut, what cards get that gem mint grade, because they can't just give out candy to everybody, all right? They have to be selective, and in this case, I feel like that card truly deserved a 10. It is a little off-center, but what older cards aren't somewhat off-center? But regardless, I bought it for super cheap. It's a beautiful card to me. I wanted to share it with you guys, and it's on my shelf, right? These are a couple cards that aren't really worth much that I put up on my shelf to display and remind myself of where I came from in the hobby and how far I've come, and to never forget about that more naive version of myself that hadn't evolved into the collector that I am now, and to still appreciate and enjoy that stuff for what it is. Okay, now let's talk about some modern stuff that I got into for the low. Okay, this Charizard V, for example, this Charizard V, I bought one in my first Collecticon for $90. And I also pulled one on stream. So, right, that cost basis is kind of really goes into how many packs I open and how much that cost me. But in that moment, let's just hypothetical. Let's say that I bought one card pack at the store and I pulled this Charizard. Getting that graded is a great move because, right, you pulled it, you sheer luck, you're building so much value by getting it graded, and then you're protecting the card too. So that was a really cool thing that happened. Even if, now, I'm pretty sure the one that got a 10 was the one that I pulled from a pack. Now, I opened over $1,200 worth of Brilliant Stars. I've said that several times on the channel. Probably at this point, more like 13, 14, or 1,500. Because the number kept increasing as I kept not pulling this card. But I pulled this card myself from Brilliant Stars. That's a pretty amazing thing. I didn't pull it for somebody else. I didn't do a box break. I pulled this card for myself. That's a pretty amazing thing. And honestly, it's priceless. And while I'm not condoning opening and opening and opening because it is a huge gamble and waste of your hard-earned money and dollars, I will say that it can keep your cost basis low if you are lucky enough. And trust me, I know people that have been lucky enough where they just go, they have this strategy, they go, they get a couple packs, they're not greedy, and you know what? Those are the people that probably deserve the hits anyways. They go in and they pull crazy stuff, and sometimes I buy the stuff that they open because I don't have that kind of luck. But there are people out there that are lucky, and that's how they keep their cost basis low. Again, that is like rare, right? Very few people can pull the chase cards and grade them themselves, and let alone grading them in a gem mint grade. Okay, another awesome card, this Lugia V. Again, I picked up the Lugia and the Charizard both at $90 a piece. At my first Collecticon show, I believe it was RF Collectibles that came up to me. He had a ton of these, and I basically got to hand pick which ones I liked the most. that was a $90 card. It is now worth what, $300, $400, $500, $600, right? Now, granted, I didn't buy that in this environment, guys. I don't think it's a good idea even to buy raw in this environment. But if you are going to build a graded collection, I would recommend not buying it, because I've only bought a couple of cards in this new environment and I can't keep up. I can't keep up with it. The cards are too expensive right now, particularly in gem mint grades, which is what I'm trying to build part of my collection towards. But yeah, another great example. Again, it was a different time in the hobby, but it could get to that point again. We don't know. No one knows the future for sure. But I want to say that I don't think the hobby is going to crash. That was a really tough time in the hobby at that point. Things were kind of really dying out. And I had a gut feeling that things were going downhill. But I liked the cards so much that I bought them anyways. Because to me, it was like, bro, $90? You can't pull this card to save your life. Yes, buy, now, done. So, yeah, that was a great experience. And RF, he hooked me up with a Charizard V, but I don't think that was the one that got a 10. But this Giratina did get a 10. Here we go, another modern card, the Giratina V Alt Art. Absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. I didn't originally care for this card much when it came out, but I bought it anyways because the offer was $190. And I just thought, you know what? This was like a $300 card raw at one point. $190? That's like half. So I thought, again, buy. I got really lucky, I want to say, because I didn't have the know-how to know that these were going to be good decisions. But at the same time, I thought they were such beautiful cards that anything 100, 200, 300 to me just seemed fair when I was spending triple, quadruple, quintuple, sextuple, whatever. I was spending so much money to try and pull these cards that I was more than happy to pay those prices at that time, even when no one cared about the hobby. Even when a lot of people were fire selling everything they had, I was the one buying still. Yeah, this, and I would say I was doing that with sealed products too, but I was more gung-ho about collecting cards at that time. Particularly, I was collecting gold stars, and we're going to talk about one of those here. But anyways, yeah, this Giratina was $190. It seems like everything that Shinji touches or Komiya are amazing. Those are arts we can all collect. And that Giratina now is like, what, 1,000 or more? 13, 1,200, I don't care. Another awesome, amazing card. Battle Styles Tyranitar V. Now, we did pull one of these from one single booster box of Battle Styles, which is amazing because I got into those boxes for like 90 to 100 bucks. So this could be a $90, $100 card. On top of that, I bought one at Regionals a year back for about 80 bucks. So either way, or 80 or 90 bucks. Either way, one got a 9, one got a 10. It doesn't matter because I know both of them were around the same price point, whether it was pulled or bought. And this card is like a $200 or $300 card. I don't care about the value as much as the fact that it's protected. It looks beautiful, especially with these other Phantom displays that also allow the graded guard to fit. They look really cool. If you haven't figured it out, one of my favorite graded guards are the black graded guards. I just think these look phenomenal. Also, I wear black pretty much every single day. So these cards are these graded guards are my spirit animal graded guards. Okay, one of my all-time favorite modern cards that I have such a good cost basis on, and I have two of these, they both got 10s, is the Van Gogh Pikachu. Now, this was the collaboration with the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam and Pokémon, and it was absolute pandemonium. This card was the content printer for a while, right? We were all talking about this card constantly, and there's no reason why we wouldn't be talking about it. It's beautiful. The art is awesome, and everything it represents in the history of it is awesome, and that's what I wanted to own. Just a little piece of that history. Absolutely beautiful. And I've got my second one. I said I wasn't going to sell them, and I still haven't sold my other copy, and there's no reason for me to. If anything, my kids someday can sell it themselves, but I'll pass it down to them in hopes that they appreciate some of this stuff the way that I do. While I don't expect them to, and I don't even necessarily want them to appreciate it as much as I do. Because you know what? I want my kids to have their own lives. I want them to have their own hobbies. If they like this stuff, great. But I am not going to push that agenda onto them. And I'm even, you know, concerned about making videos moving forward, you know, how that will be for them growing up with, you know, a dad who's, you know, this crazed Pokemon collector. And that's why I need to keep working at the bar. That way my kids can tell their friends, yeah, he's a bar owner, right? Because being a Pokemon card YouTuber is not one of my, that's not one of my ultimate life goals, right? That passes the legacy down. But who knows? There was one point in time where I wanted to be the biggest Pokemon YouTuber ever. The dream is still there. It is a flickering candlelight at this point, but it's still alive. It's still there. Anyways, this Van Gogh Pikachu is beautiful. This one was, I mean, definitely a mint copy. These were promo cards where if you spent $25, I believe it was, at Pokemon Center, maybe it was $40 or maybe it was $50, right? Now, I spent my $50 was basically, I decided to lump in a, everyone's having a lot of fun right now. Hey, stop having so much fun. She can't run in here though. She's butt naked. Okay. Get dressed, Aspen. Put your clothes on. Anyways, I come from a family of artists. My mom's a professional painter. My dad was a professional sculptor. He deals more in real estate now and he plays music now. But for the most part, and my sister does design. She was working for multiple fashion companies, including Nike and Skechers, and now works at Tesla designing a lot of their accessories, which we're not going to get into politics or Tesla or any of that. I'm just saying my family is a family of creatives. So this card being connected to an artist so historically well known was really, really important to me. But I also didn't place a whole lot of value because they were promos. So I thought it was kind of crazy that people were going nuts over these cards. If I never got one, I probably would have ended up buying one, but there's a good chance that I wouldn't have because I kind of don't believe into buying up super hyped cards that basically started being worth nothing. Anyways, yeah, another great example of having a low cost basis card. Let me again explain. So Pokemon Center had a deal where if you spent $50, I think you got the free shipping and you also got one of these promos. So I made two separate orders, but each one I decided to buy booster boxes because the way I saw it, this card at the time to me was at least worth 40, 50 bucks off the bat. So I kind of saw it as like discounting my booster boxes from the 140 price point down to 90 because this card was invaluable to me. My friends thought it was kind of stupid at the time that I added booster boxes to my cart. But look now, Pokemon Center is completely sold out, so I'm a genius. No, I am not a genius. Okay, let's talk about some other cards. This base set Charizard, the classic base set Charizard that pretty much anybody can afford, even now in a PSA 7. I think they're around like $300 or $400, don't care. Just an awesome card. I paid about $100 or less for this card back when the hobby was really still peaking, right? During the pandemic time. Okay, guys, you are having way too much fun, and I feel like I'm missing out on all the fun, okay? I feel like I'm missing out. You are not allowed to have that much fun. Guys, I have to go because my family's having way too much fun without me, and it's just, this isn't sustainable. Okay. No, but joking. This Charizard was one of the most important cards to me when I first got into the hobby. I really felt like this card represented everything about what I loved about the hobby. It's always been a special card to me, and I can't explain it. Call me basic. I love Charizard. And in the beginning, when I first started collecting whatever grades or whatever condition Charizards I could get, I wasn't buying graded Charizards. First off, my first graded nice Charizard was a first edition PSA 5 Charizard, and now I have a 9, but we're not going to talk about that. What we are going to talk about again is the fact that I got into this card so cheap, even when that environment was still a hyped up environment. There were still deals. People were still getting rid of their old Pokemon cards and not sentimental with it or expecting a lot of money from it. So yeah, I bought this one off of Mercari. I bought this Charizard off of Mercari for like 90 bucks or 100 bucks. And honestly, I thought it would probably get an 8 or a 9. To be honest with you guys, I'm not sure why it got, a 7? But that's the other thing, is I waited too long to grade it. I waited way too long to grade it. I wish I would have graded sooner, because I do believe that they pop control a lot of these cards. And that's what makes it so tough to get vintage high graded cards. Okay, another Charizard, the Power Keepers Charizard. One of my favorite artworks for Charizard cards, with that dark background. It kind of reminds me of the Dark Charizard a little bit, just with the moon and the darkness in the background. But this card has a beautiful Cosmo Holo. Comes from Power Keepers, and I bought this card for $50 raw off of eBay. Again, that was in time when the hobby was peaking, but there were so many deals going around, right? $50 holographic Charizards from great sets. Craziness. I think that card's worth over $200 now, and a PSA 8. All right, I gotta close the door, guys. I was leaving the door open because I just did not care enough, but I can't risk her running in here. Mainly because she's still butt naked, it sounds like. So, and you guys know I've been making a lot of my videos in one take now, because it's just way less stressful, and honestly, it seems like they get more views when I'm trying less. So it's whatever. Okay, now let's go into a bigger Charizard card. Now you guys know I love Charizard. I've got several really big cards with Charizard in the name, but this one was one that I picked up recently that I think sheds light on buying cards to build up your collection. But wow, this video went way longer than I had intended. But kind of overspending. So this Shining Charizard in PSA 10, I spent $11,400 on, right? One of my most expensive cards to date, for sure. Am I proud of it? Not necessarily. Am I going to beat myself up over it every day? No, I'm not. I really wanted this card. I wanted it in my collection, and I felt like it was kind of now or never. Even though I still feel like this card is worth closer to around $9,000. So $11,400 was, in my opinion, me spending $2,400 over what I really valued it at. But anyways, sometimes you have to sacrifice a bunch of other stuff in your collection to afford something like this, and I did. I recently sold a ton of stuff in my collection, and that helped me afford a card like that. I also have a lot of blood, sweat, and equity into that card because I work my ass off in my job, running the bar. Last night, in fact, I'm going to talk about this so you guys know, right? Because it's not all peaches and cream running a bar. And then we'll talk about one of the last cards here, this Mew. In fact, we'll talk about this last card now. But do I believe that the Shining Charizard will go up in value? Sure. Did that really help make that decision? Not so much. A good friend of mine, JD, who Pixel Monster on Instagram, go check him out. He's completed all of the textured Shining cards from the Shining kind of subset. Still missing the Gyarados and the Magikarp, but those are Cosmo Holos, so it's not the same effect as this. These are honestly more special in my opinion, although I would like to have the Gyarados and the Magikarp at some point. I just think the texture of these Holos is really special. But a good friend of mine had picked up the card, and you start having friends in the hobby and building a community, and you know, monkey see, monkey do, and it was really that simple. The card had been on my list, but once a friend of mine had picked it up in this environment, I was like, dude, if you're getting it, I'm getting it. We're gonna do this thing. So congrats, JD, to completing your first edition Shining collection for the most part. I am just beginning that journey myself. But again, I wanted to start that adventure, and I'm hoping I can find better deals on the next cards in this kind of subset of the first edition Shinings. But I splurged, and sometimes, guys, it's okay to splurge and not beat yourself up about it. But what I am telling you, new collectors that are new to the hobby, that haven't been here long enough to justify something like this, right? I couldn't justify a card that expensive when I was 1 year into this hobby. I just couldn't do it. It was craziness. But as I got into the hobby and as I realized I was sticking around, it was invaluable to me, really, to own something that I felt like not many people in the world owned. That made me feel unique. It made me feel special. Does it make me unique or special? No, it does not. This is a piece of cardboard that received a high grade according to a grading company. And while it is special, I think we do place way too much value on this stuff. Okay, let's talk about this last card, and then I'll tell you guys my horror story from the bar last night. Dragon Frontiers. This was one of the final gold stars that I was going after. Right now, this card is closer to around like 2 to 3 grand. But I picked this card up for $1,400-1,500 right off eBay. Now, this again was right before we had the boom that we're having right now. I seem to always have pretty lucky good timing when I'm buying a lot of this stuff. Right now I'm missing Celebi and Umbreon Gold Stars, and I haven't pulled the trigger on anything because even for me, these prices are ridiculous, and I don't think we should entertain them for a lot of this high-end vintage stuff. And it sucks because if you don't, someone else will. And that is the harsh reality that like this is a hyper-competitive space, and I'm a hyper-competitive person at heart. So it does make it difficult when I'm like, all right, if I don't buy this Gold Star Umbreon for 10 grand, somebody else is going to. So I might just as well have to move on it. But I am confident we're going to see a little lull in the hobby. Might only be for a couple of months. I don't think it's going to be a crash across the board. But when my gut kicks in and tells me this is the right time, that's when it will be the right time. I really do go off of a lot of gut instinct. I don't follow the numbers like a lot of other people probably do. And I pretty much luck out every time. Or maybe it's that I have a great instinct in this hobby with collecting. And people discount that, right? People discount the fact that you might have killer instinct when it comes to this hobby. And maybe power to the people saying, this card's gonna explode. Don't miss the train on this booster box or this set. You know, it's about to take off. Other people have killer instincts too. So I'm not discounting their killer instincts, but I think a lot of it is a big money train. And it has been detrimental to the hobby so far. Okay. This Gold Star meal. I mean, I remember my buddy telling me he bought this card for $50. He literally bought this card for $50. You know, now here I was this past year paying $1,400, $1,300. Like it was somewhere around there for this card. And it is a beautiful copy. I'm super happy with it. That's another thing. If I pay a premium on a card and it has any flaws, it really pisses me off. But when it's this clean, and we can go ahead, I'll show you guys the front. Honestly, it's a little off center, but like this card deserves a 10, honestly. I could crack this today and with confidence probably go after a PSA 10. Look at this, guys. Look how freaking clean this card is. Anyways, oh, also I noticed something, guys. I noticed something really, really cool that I wanted to show you. I was looking over this. I know the video keeps going longer, but I was looking over this CD promo Charizard, and I wanted to show you that it has a white ink blotch on it, right? I never noticed that till now, but that is a factory error. And just for those of you that see a nice card, I saw a beautiful Gold Star Pikachu that I wanted to put a bid in to replace the 9 that I have that I'm unhappy with. And it had like a white ink blotch. And I asked the Discord what they thought of it. And they're like, that looks like a factory error. But I still didn't feel confident about it. But seeing this one here now and seeing a very, very similar placed white ink blotch, especially the fact that it's a Japanese card, so it shows that there was a lapse in vintage Japanese card quality. That's pretty cool. It also could be the fact that this is a CD promo, right? So I don't know if it probably had different quality being made at that time. But yeah, just wanted to point that out there, that those errors do exist, and sometimes a card can be mint, but it just has an ink blotch like that. Anyways, this was a great example of a card where I bought it less than a year ago, and it pretty much doubled in value. Now, that's not saying much, because in this environment, it's no mystery that most everything has kind of doubled or tripled in value. From the last, like, not even a year ago or even 6 months ago, which the thing is, when a market, and I'm going to use market, when a market moves like that, you have to question it a little bit. You have to question it just a little bit. Anyways, that being said, guys, let's talk about my horror story, even though this video has gone way too long. Last night, I had a girl basically keep me in the bar, like, 30 minutes past when we were supposed to be closed. I could not get her out. This girl came up to the bar. I'm not even going to say names or who. I'm not trying to expose anybody locally. It is kind of funny, but it's also kind of not funny because I was very frustrated in the moment. But orders a drink. I got a line of people waiting for other drinks. I make the drink. I take the time out to make the cocktail, which is a more complex cocktail, our meteorite. And then all of our cocktails are based on like galaxy, universe, space themes. My name is Orion, like Orion's belt, so yeah. And the bar is called Starlight, so yeah. Anyways, she got the meteorite. She went outside, was talking with people, walking around, whatever, and I'm like, I mean, occasionally people do that, but it's really disrespectful to walk away from me when I'm making your drink and I'm quickly pumping it out so that I can serve the next people in line so that you can pay for your drink. Anyways, she comes back after like 5 minutes or so. Like, it's been sitting there for a while. Then she's like, oh, my drink's been sitting here and you didn't get me? And I'm like, I know it's not professional to talk about anybody in this light, but I mean, this was bad, guys. This was really bad, to a point where people in the bar were like, are you going to kick her out? Which, as you guys can imagine, presumably we could not get her out. Not until the very end of the night, past the night. And yes, I told her that I cannot serve you anymore. Yes, that obviously. But anyways, came back to the bar, then proceeded to tell me about how great she is and how she's going to bring all her friends to the bar. And then she does this with her hands and she smacks the drink over. And the drink just goes all over me, goes all over my phone. I about absolutely lost it in that moment. I have never flipped out on a customer before. I try and really like, but in this moment, I was like, I just lost it. And she didn't even realize it. She was so like lost in whatever she was doing that she didn't even realize how much she had just pissed me off. And she's like, oh, it's okay. Give me a towel, clean it off. And she's like sloshing stuff all across the counter. It was an absolute mess, guys. I'm like, oh my God, get me out of this nightmare. I rarely have bad interactions at the bar. Like, we have a pretty good community, but man, this was bad last night. And then after that, she proceeded to tell me how I should hire her to do the marketing and how if I don't hire her for the business, all of our numbers are going to go downhill. Oh man. And then we had a live show going on, and she was like heckling the live show, and like I was just like behind the bar like, oh, and I was looking at everybody, and it wasn't like they were judging me for not kicking her out sooner. They were empathizing with me. People were looking at me, and after the show, everybody came up to me and were like, we totally had your back. If you wanted to strong arm that girl and tell her you need to get the f out of here, we would have had your back. But I don't like doing that to people because I believe when you're running a business, you have to be super professional. One wrong move and you get a bad Google review, and it's downhill from there. So I really try and give people the benefit of the doubt and give them a little more grace and mercy than I feel like most people would give. Now, I've dealt with a few angry men in this line of work, and I don't put up with that, right? I don't put up with bullies. But in this case, it was a girl, and I felt like I had to handle it a little bit differently, with a little bit more grace and tenderness. Anyways, fast forward, an hour goes by. It is 30 minutes past close. This girl is telling me, like, can you close me out? Just close me out. And I'm like, you've been closed out. And she's like, what? You closed me out? I didn't even tell you that we were supposed to close out. And I was like, honey, it is 30 minutes past close. I closed everybody out 30 minutes ago. You are closed out. You can go home. And she's like, well, wait, did I give you a tip? And I'm like, first you're angry that I closed you out. Now you're angry that I didn't force you to tip. I closed her out with no tip, guys. I didn't even want money from this person because that's how much I valued just getting out of the bar and getting home. In that moment, I cared about nothing more than just like, I cannot wait to get home, to give Diana a kiss on the cheek and a hug, and to go see Aspen while she's asleep, and to go look at our lovely son, because I am so grateful to have a family to go home to, guys, because I can't imagine working a night like that and going home alone, right? It would have been so draining, like not having someone to confide in and talk to about that experience, and that's why I'm talking about it now, because I do have to get it off my chest. We have another big night tonight, and hopefully everything goes smooth for this engagement party. But yeah, last night was really tested me, and I made really good money. I made like $200 last night in tips. So So it was a really good night. That's how I can afford a lot of these more expensive cards in this hobby. But I wanted to share that with you guys because I think a lot of people know that I have a pretty good living, but I also think they need to hear those stories because they need to be able to empathize and understand that I put blood, sweat, and quite literally tears into these cards, right? I sacrifice and have to deal with that BS, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate that are in the service industry or even just customer service, retail, all of it's kind of the same. It's amazing that people can be so, like, the lack of awareness when you're on the other side of it, right? Whenever I go anywhere, whenever I shop anywhere, whenever I eat anywhere, I put money aside for tips. I treat the person serving us like they are absolute gold, even if it's not good. Even if whatever I get is not good, not their fault necessarily, right? Whether it's a server or a bartender or the pizza delivery guy. I always try and treat people with the utmost respect and compassion, and I try and do that in this hobby too. Anyways, I don't know if that was even funny or just sounded stressful, but yeah, guys, that was an interesting time last night, and that's sometimes what it takes to run a bar. It is not all peaches and cream. Sometimes it's gravy, and I'm like, damn, I get to work here. A lot of times I tell people, I get to work at this bar. I get to run this place. And then there's times like last night where I have to deal with this. I have to do this. This is the life that I've built up, and I have to keep going with it now. And I have to deal with people like this probably on a more regular basis. As the bar expands, as we grow and get more popular, I'm gonna have to deal with more people treating me like that. And I gotta say, guys, I'm really happy that we're located in this niche little area on a side street that we are at. Starlight on 22nd. Come check us out. We're here in the NODA area in Charlotte. A little bit of backstory, and then we'll leave because this is way too long of a video. I'm sorry, guys. But my parents came into Charlotte with nothing as starving artists. They built up the NODA area, and that's how the whole story of the bar being available, that property being available for us to start a bar business has come to light. I wouldn't be where I am without my family. I wouldn't be where I am without other people giving me a leg up and helping me. And I hope I can do the same thing for my kids someday, raise them to work hard and earn a living and serve others. Anyways, guys, peace out. I hope you guys have a great day. Time to get some quality family time in.